Hey everyone, welcome to another Marketing Monday. There was a brief moment where I was a little scared that the app would crash on me again, but just one moment, getting on just a minute early so I can go ahead and share this to to my Facebook profile. It's a cold, dreary, not really snowy day, but a cold and dreary day in Denver. Hopefully the weather's nicer wherever you are. If you are tuning in from Denver, hopefully you're staying warm. Let's see. Share. Anyway, for those of you who are just tuning in, my name is Helene, CEO and founder of Hashtagitude, which is a digital marketing agency based in downtown Denver. Not only do we provide digital marketing solutions, we also provide videography and photography services. So if you have any photography or videography needs besides digital marketing, contact us. So this week's theme is about audio marketing, but specifically podcasts. We're going to present the stats today and why it's still important. Tell us in the comments below. First, do you listen to podcasts? And if so, which are your favorite shows? So I'm always looking for new podcasts to listen to. I have a few of my favorites, which I'll probably share with you all on this week's blog post. So, podcasting is definitely not out. I don't know if anyone ever thought it was really out in the first place, but it's definitely bigger than ever. Did you know, though, podcasting it actually started in the 1980s, but back then it was known as audio blogging. In late 2004, when the iPod came out and other playback devices, which probably are now defunct, but when all that started coming out, podcasting became a lot more popular. Actually, a journalist from The Guardian, his name is Ben Hammersley, he came up with the term podcasting in February 2004. So that gives you, that's about 13 years, right? 13 years of us using that term, and it's bigger and better than ever. According to the latest research from Nielsen, so their latest research was from August 2017, 50% of all U.S. homes are podcast fans. 40%, or 112 million, of the U.S. population has listened to a podcast, which is up from 36% in 2016. Interestingly enough, 56% of podcast listeners are male, and then 45% of monthly podcast listeners have a household income over $75,000 versus 35% for the total population. 27% of podcast listeners in the U.S. have a 4-year college degree versus 19% of the U.S. population. And then 51% of podcast listening is done at home, while 22% listen while driving in a vehicle. I personally do listen to podcasts, actually at the office here, but also at home, and sometimes as I'm commuting from my home. But it really just depends, because depending on how long the podcast episode is, if it's longer than an hour, then I'll probably listen to it at home. But if it's about 20 minutes, that's a good amount of time for me to listen to it on the light rail. So anyway, podcast listeners generally subscribe to an average of 6 shows. They listen to an average of 5 different shows per week. And 86% of podcast listeners actually listen to all or most of each episode. And then the 3 top categories for podcasts are comedy, education, and news. I would say I probably listen to more education-related podcasts than the other 2, but I'm sure comedy probably would be an interesting podcast genre for me to consider. But anyway, podcast listeners are more likely to follow companies and brands on social media, which is an interesting little bit of statistic right there. So what do all these stats tell us? I just told you a bunch of stats. You're probably like, okay, cool, that's nice to know. Good to know for the next trivia night I go to. But anyway, the importance of these stats are, podcast listeners do lean a little heavy on, being male, highly educated, affluent, and social media savvy. So if your business's target market targets this demographic, then keep podcasting in mind. But don't count female listeners out either. I personally know from my own hobbies that there's a huge following of female listeners for podcasts and crafts, specifically knitting and crocheting, but also in entrepreneurship. So podcasts do not necessarily have to be audio only either. They don't even have to be pre-recorded. So at least in the crafting community, which like I just mentioned, I am a part of, I do craft. I sew, I knit, I crochet. There are video podcasts to consume. I would say, especially if you're a knitter or you're interested in knitting. Some of my friends have said that these video podcast episodes, which can often be up to an hour or more per episode, they're usually a good alternative to having a knit night with a local community. So, it's nice to get tutorials, video tutorials as well through these podcast episodes for knitters, just because a lot of times if you hear someone explaining it and get it through an audio format, especially when it comes to something like that's a super visual like crafting, you want to see it versus just hearing it. So you can also do Facebook Live audio these days as well, which I actually only just learned, I would say, at the beginning of this month. So you can go live with audio only. I was considering going live with this video just through audio itself, but since I do repurpose these videos for YouTube as well, I figured, okay, well, next time maybe I'll do a Facebook Live audio. So there you have it. Of course, if you're just tuning in, either live or on replay, let me know in the comments below what kind of podcast you listen to. Always looking for new recommendations. So this week's blog post, which will come out on Wednesday or Thursday, will be about how to get started with podcasting, what kind of tools you'll need. I'll give you a little sneak preview since I do have one important tool, which is a mic. Good mic, good audio for your podcast is always important, but I'll share more on this week's blog post. But also, I'll feature a few tips from podcasters that I know as well, both, I'll say, local, maybe not local. So tune in to our blog this week for more tips on how to get started with podcasting. Upcoming events, so I will be a panelist at the next Women of Denver Quarterly Networking Party, which is happening on December 2nd, which is a Saturday in early December. So early bird tickets are still available. They'll be available through November 15th. So I can't believe tomorrow is Halloween and we're we're basically into the holiday season now. But if you're interested in attending the party, I'll drop the link below after this broadcast and you can click and get your early bird discount. Also, we'll be announcing our 2018 events soon. Of course, if you want to be the first to know about our events in 2018, you can sign up for our weekly email to be the first to find out. The emails just go out once a week on Monday mornings, and we definitely don't spam you. We don't sell your information, so I'll drop the link below as well if you're interested in signing up for our mailing list. So thanks for tuning in today, and if you have any questions about podcasting or want to drop some insights in the comments below, feel free to do so, and hopefully you'll have a great week and great start to November. I'll see you again next week.